Today's overlooked stock is a big winner. George Tillis taking a look at Redwire for us. George, this is a really interesting one, even by the standards of this segment. This is at a really big run, not just short term either. It's been going back for kind of like a year and a half now almost. It's a space, they call themselves a space infrastructure company. So that's pretty cool. George, tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the story for Redwire, and you're right. I mean, if you look at the price action, there's a lot of development happening price-wise since November. So obviously there's some election catalyst and Trump catalyst with this particular name. But yeah, you're right. If you look at their core technology and business, they're known for being an advanced space technology and infrastructure company. So they basically supply technologies like avionics and sensors and power generation, but they also help with payload deployment and management. Particularly, they have what is called a microgravity research platform that is actually used in the International Space Station. So their technologies have been used in the past. They are continuing to be expected to be used in the future. And it's really about payload deployments for manned and unmanned vehicles in space. In other words, suborbital space, not essentially further out in space, places like Mars and so forth. But nonetheless, this stock has obviously done very well. If you look at the price action over the last year, it's up over 650%. And I think one of the other catalysts associated with this particular company is if you go back and look historically, it recently made an acquisition of another company called Edge Autonomy. And so this goes back to the 21st of January, so it's not too long ago. But what this ends up doing is it broadens out their portfolio into other areas like UAVs, unmanned vehicles that are generally tied into the drone technologies, which, again, seem to be very hot right now. I think if you consider the Department of Defense and also looking at other national security departments like the Special Forces operations, there's a lot of demand for UAVs. So I think there's a twofold catalyst happening here for Redwire. It's essentially their space technologies, primarily their research platforms and payload deployments for the International Space Station, but also the Edge Autonomy acquisition. That was the company they acquired going back to January, which gives them a broader portfolio for DoD contracts alongside some of their NASA contracts, which they already have.
Wow. All right, it's like I don't know, is it like the Palantir of space narrative where like they're going to now be like the favorite to, get new contracts? And I imagine that with the guy who wants to go to Mars running the government efficiency department, he's probably, my guess is he might be a little bit loose on some of the space exploration expenses, perhaps?
Well, yeah, let's just put it this way. Obviously, there's probably going to be a reshuffling of federal dollars. So if that movement of monies into areas in terms of space deployment, space technology, space exploration, companies like Virgin Galactic, Redwire will certainly benefit. In fact, the other thing is if you look at Virgin Galactic and Redwire, they actually have a strategic partnership where Redwire provides payload deployments and payload management services for Virgin Galactic, low orbit infrastructure. So, with it said, obviously this company's doing something right. They're generating revenues which have been growing. If you actually look at the last year, trailing 12 months, higher by 27%. Estimates for growth in terms of sales are about 42%. For the forward 4 quarters, sales are close to $300 million, market cap $1.4 billion. Company's still not profitable, so you got to keep that in mind. But if you look at the net losses last year on about $300 million in sales, they lost about $78 million. They have about $43 million in cash on the books, so they're probably going to be issuing a secondary just to help their operating expenses. But for what it's worth, I think the other strategic acquisitions where they're going to get these DoD contracts potentially are quite meaningful. So, kind of a hit or miss. It's growing. It's not necessarily growing at a reasonable price. It's not growing profitably just yet. But right now, it's based upon solid top-line sales growth. And the analysts, for instance, B. Riley, recently upped the stock. They had a previous target of $9.50. They moved it to $27. And this was recently, and there are 6 analysts that cover the stock, so it's nothing it's not a stock that's not necessarily looked at by analysts, 6 analysts, and they have a median price target at 26. So I think the DoD contracts might be something to consider here as a catalyst for the business. And I think that's what the price action is telling us. Now, just quickly, let me add, obviously the stock keeps moving higher over time since early November. But one of the things you'll notice is that it seems to retest that 50-day moving average as maybe a primary trend line support. So it's quite a bit above it right now. It certainly could retest it, which is right around, let's call it the 16.5 area. Something to be mindful of.
Yeah, I like that. Wow, what a chart. Appropriate for a space stock, that trajectory that it's on.
Yeah.
It's making some stuff for Virgin Galactic, too. I mean, it seems like it's connected to the places where it needs to be and now might be a front runner for the contracts. I mean, a little bit speculative in that realm, but still a company that's got a list of good clients. As I'm saying that, I'm looking at Boeing, but, fine, other than the other stuff, RTX, Lockheed, Airbus, Boeing, and of course the U.S. government. So, all right, Redwire, RDW. Thanks, George. Good one to watch there.